I hope everybody's doing well. I'm Tony Pellegrino, and this is part of a live tech talk that we do every Tuesday and Thursday. Today being Thursday, March 4th. Thank you for joining us, and we've got a lot of stuff to talk about. I'm going to give you a quick rundown on what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about a bunch of trail fixes, including how to change a broken axle, how to fix a broken U-joint on your front axle, how to change a U-joint in a drive shaft, how to change a hub that's broken, pitman arms, rear yokes or front yokes, and basically the yoke on an axle. I've got some new products to show you. I've got lots and lots going on, so I brought a little bit of everything. And to end the show, we're going to talk about spring rates, everybody's favorite topic, shocks. So if we even get that far, or that'll turn into the next one. And by the way, next Tuesday, I've got a special guest, a gentleman from Torco Oil, Synthetic Oils, will be here. And so you won't want to miss next Tuesday. He's got a plethora of information about oil, and it'll be everything you want to know for sure. How we doing, Deb?
We're doing awesome. We got lots of folks, lots of viewers, top fans. Kevin Hudson, Ed Gladden Jr.,
Nice.
Corey Lone Wolf Picard, Dennis Sargent, Jeff Perkins, Jeff Lone, Esther Parrott Newcomb, VB Tom,
Sounds
Kevin
like a lot of the
Hudson,
usual
Logan
suspects.
Dellarino,
Good.
Terry Runyon, Stephen Horsch.
Awesome.
Lots of folks this morning. That's just great.
Very cool. All right. So let's go to, I'm just going to cover it real quick in case we got some new people. We welcome your questions and comments. Debbie will read them off and I can answer them. Please just type them in, include some information about your Jeep and what you're trying to do so I can better answer the question.
We've got a question already.
Oh, okay.
I think he missed the show from about 3 episodes ago.
Okay.
But
what do we got?
He asked for your tips on how to break a bead lock at home.
Oh, so my favorite way to do it at home is by using the tongue jack on my enclosed trailer. You just run it down and you just keep turning the wheel and running it down right next to the rim, and it pops it off pretty easy. So that would be my tip. We've tried running them over and the forklift and all that BS. It's pretty much a waste of time. So, yep. All right. So that's the kind of question I'm talking about. So good job. All right. Featured products. I got a couple things I want to talk about. If you have not seen them, these are our armrests. We just are finishing making more. This is a GenRight product. This drops into a Bestop fabric door, soft door, or your factory hard doors, or our brand new JL doors. They're really nice. It's got a nice foam in it, and the material is that it won't scorch your arm. It's very comfortable when you're leaning out and looking, or just trying to look like a cool guy. Great product. Check those out when you get a chance. Rash guards. So this is the rash guard for a JK aluminum rocker or JL aluminum rocker. These are really nice. It's 3/16 steel, and it puts what we designed the rash guard for, whether it's on a rocker or a bumper, is on the high impact area, right where you need the surface hardness, the abrasion resistance. We put a rash guard on there. So basically you save all the weight, but this is about 6-7 pounds, and that you put it right where you need it, and then you don't have to carry the rest of the weight on the vehicle. So super nice product. To bend this takes quite a bit. So it's a really nice thing. They're inexpensive. They use some of the existing holes to bolt them on, and then you usually have to put in a few new ones too. So much easier to do when you first install the product, but it is possible to do them after the parts are on. So I wanted to talk about that. We get this question all the time. If you've got our aluminum products, you really should have the rash guard. So check that out. You'll notice I'm running them on the Terremoto.
Jeff Lone just posted that he loves his rash guards, and they did their job this past weekend. Saved his rocker and only hit the rash guard, worth every penny.
There you go. See? So yeah, it's basically cheap insurance. And I'll give you an idea. On a JK, the rocker is 60 pounds per side heavier than the aluminum ones. So you add on 6, 7, 8 pounds per side for that just protection right on the high impact area, and that's it. So you can carry a lot less weight on your vehicle. Again, keeping it light is gonna keep all these broken things we're gonna talk about here on the table in just a minute. Next thing I wanted to point out, I just got this, I've always wanted one. It's the Warn Polzol. It's a really cool little thing, and it's electric powered. This one happens to be 110 volt AC, so you plug it in to the light socket. It just helps you pull stuff or lift stuff. It's rated for about 1,000 pounds, and you know, my old back is not feeling very strong anymore, so it's a great thing to have around when I just feel like you can use it to pull a motor, move an axle, you know, lots of stuff that we're always moving around that a lot of the time I'm looking for the forklift. Now I can grab this and move stuff. So can't wait to try this out. I saw this a couple years ago at SEMA, and just wanted to let you know I got it, and it's one of those featured products. Okay.
Hey, Tom.
Yep.
We got a question from Sean Gentry. He's got a 2018 JL and would love to hear you talk about the Elite suspension system.
Ah, okay. I guess we could cover that right now in the featured product section. That is being assembled right now on the other side of this wall. Each day, pretty much every day, I am posting pictures of the progress on this. If you'd like to see that, go over to our website. There's a blue bar right at the top under the gallery. There's several categories: products, shop by vehicle. There's one that says gallery. Hit that, it'll drop down, hit JL, another drop down, and find the one that says aftershock. That's what we're calling our GenRight JL that we're building. And there's a whole story on why we're doing what we're doing, how we're doing it, and you can see the steps almost up to date. I just took pictures a little while ago because Darren was finishing the axles that are going to be going under it. So we're just chugging along, and hope to have it done to be at East Reap Safari. I'm pretty sure, I shouldn't say hope, I'm pretty sure it'll be there. So it looks awesome, and lots of information there. And yeah, check it out. I think you'll find it very interesting, to say the least. Anything else right now? Or keep going? Because I got a lot to cover.
Sean Gentry again.
Yep.
He's looking, JLUR, looking for a 10,000 pound winch recommendation.
Yeah, you can go with the preference would be the Warn Xeon. They've got one with a synthetic rope. That's a nice one. And then if you don't want to spend quite that much money, you can get their VR series, still Warn product. And that also is available with the synthetic rope. And yeah, great product. We've just put a few on here in the last few days, and mount up, works great. And we've actually done several Tech Talk shows on those. If you've missed them, we have a whole section in Facebook where you can go back and watch the previous Tech Talks, or you can go over to the GenRight YouTube channel where we've got all the Tech Talks over there too, for those of you and your friends that aren't on Facebook, even though if you're watching this, you're on Facebook. So you just have to find that section in. By the way, back to our website where I was just talking about that blue bar, go under company, and the first thing is Tech Talks, and that has hyperlinks to both the Facebook Tech Talks, all of them, and the YouTube Tech Talks. So we make it real easy for you guys to find all this stuff, to watch the previous. And by the way, we've been doing this for a year, and there are tons of them. Because when we first started doing them, we were doing them every day. And then we went to a couple times a week, so there are a lot of them. So, and we've already covered every subject there is. So, you know, we've kind of been recapping on a lot of these things. So, definitely check it out. Anything else right now?
Tom Cahill from Iowa has just tuned in. He said thanks. He loves the Tech Talks.
Thanks. I thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'm glad that you are all getting something out of it. That means a lot to me. I'll reiterate, I'm always just trying to inspire people. I'm also trying to show you the right way to do it. You know, a lot of the time, you just get out there with some guy and, you know, he may or may not have good luck. And I don't know about you, but I've never had that kind of good luck. So any tips I can get, I'll take it. And what I'm about to talk about, I guarantee you, if you haven't already seen it on the trail, you will. Because this is all the stuff that I see every time I go out. Not by me, but other people. So.
Another question,
Yep.
Anthony Paquette, are you going with the Xeon over the CTI on Aftershock?
So yes, Aftershock will have the Xeon. The CTI is no longer technically available. So my favorite winch, they discontinued. And so unless you can find one out there, I had one set aside for the Aftershock, and Jamie pulled it and put it on the growler yesterday. So that was my last CTI. So, yep. I don't plan on getting stuck much, so won't need a winch anyways. All right, keep going?
Yep.
All right. Let's see. Let's talk about trail fixes. So we've gone over this a bunch of times, but we had several people write in, and this is where, you know, I always tell you guys, hey, let me know what topics you want to talk about. So I had people write in who said, show me how to do certain things. So the first thing was, how do you fix a broken axle? So here's a 35 spline axle. This is, by the way, this is a good one. This is a 300M. And it breaks off. And the reason I'm showing you this piece that's left is this is what usually happens, is it breaks off inside the differential, okay? So this chunk is stuck. You're able to pull the axle out, right? So I'll show you like your typical axle, right? Looks like this. If I can get this stuff off here. Right, so there's the splines. And this one's a typical 8 lug, right, 1 ton. So you got this flange to hang on to, and you can pull the axle out. Well, when it comes out, it's missing this chunk of spline. Now that's a particular challenge, right? And what happens is now you got to get this out. And trust me, when this breaks, it's never a good thing. And part of the reason I'm always telling you guys and gals to upgrade your axles is because this is what I want you to avoid. This will ruin your day at best, okay? This little chunk will get stuck in there. By the way, it also broke off a bunch of little pieces. So think about this. How many times are you out on the trail with a long stick with a magnet on the end, right? So now you gotta put this thing inside the tube of your axle, gather up all the shards and stuff that are inside there. Because keep in mind, there are seals inside your axle too, that are run on there to keep the oil inside. So you gotta collect up all the little shards of metal best you can. Now this is even if you have a spare, right? So now if you're really lucky, this chunk, the magnet, you have a strong enough one that'll grab the chunk and get it out. If you don't, then you're going to disassemble the other side that isn't broken. By the way, that's a giant job in itself because you got to pull the wheel, the brakes, get the axle out. Then you're going to take this same stick and you're going to shove it through from the other side and punch this little guy out. If you notice, mine, there's a little thing in the end, and my stick is exactly that same size. So you're gonna hit it with a hammer and punch this out, okay? Then, once it's out, you're gonna grab it with your magnet and drag it out of there. Then you can put the whole thing back together. Now, this process I just described is a multi-hour process. Oh, and by the way, your axle didn't brake on perfectly flat ground, you are in a nasty spot, okay? So working on your vehicle is going to be precarious. You know, sometimes you're in a canyon, you can't even get the axles out, right? So now you got to figure out how to wait a winch or drag yourself forward, back, something. You know, I'm just painting some of the scenarios for you. I don't know about you, but I do not want to work on my vehicle out on the trail. I'd much rather work on it in the garage, okay? Any questions on that right now, Deb, before I move on?
No, we've got a couple of questions.
Okay.
But
so I'm gonna
unrelated.
keep moving. Okay. Now let's talk about front axles, right? Is that my next slides here, guys? Okay. So front axles are particularly challenging because when the U-joint breaks, it typically toasts the knuckle and the ball joints. And I've got a few different examples to show you here. So here's one that broke what they call the cross, right? And once that happens, it starts bending everything, and ultimately it knocked the knuckle right out, okay? So what's happening and what I'm showing you is you've got a bad day just getting worse, okay? And these are not the kind of things you can drive on. Your vehicle is stuck right there. You must go get parts, okay? So this is a very critical thing that you do not want to happen. This is pretty typical, right? So what happens is it breaks, and if you catch it, if you hear the snap and stop, okay? The moment you hear something really high impact, really high energy, you need to stop and figure out if it's your vehicle. If this is your vehicle, you do not want to move this. You want to work on it right now. If you move it, you are going to be in this situation where it knocks the knuckle off, okay? And worse, it might break the knuckle, okay? So knocking it off is one thing, but I've actually had it where it breaks off this back part, and then now you got to go get a new knuckle too. Oh, and by the way, are those like readily available? Probably not. So definitely be heads up on that. Here's another example, you know, where it spit the cap off. If you follow me at all on on Facebook, I had this similar situation happen to me out at the Hammers, and I stopped right there. And what we did was I pounded the caps back in before it got to this point and unlocked the hubs, which we're going to talk about in a minute, and then I drove straight back to camp and repaired it, okay? So you definitely need to know what you're doing here, and this guy's still in good shape because he hasn't knocked his knuckle off or broken it. So this inner part's called the C, and this outer part's called the knuckle, okay? So let's go to the next part. The next thing I wanted to show you is the request we had was how do you change the U-joint in a drive shaft, okay? So this is typical. This is probably what your drive shaft looks like. This is called a CV. Okay, and this one is greasable. There's a couple of zerts on here. All of these things are held in with little C-clips. And I'm gonna move over here and work on this. You guys just get to kind of watch along, okay? And Deb, if there's any related questions, just fire them my way.
Okay.
Okay, so first off, there's a little clip inside here. Alex, can you see this pretty good? That you just grab with some needle nose and you take it out. You flip it over and you get the other side too. Now sometimes these get wedged in here, so you're going to need a hammer, and when you squeeze it, you're just going to get it, you just got to get it where it'll come out. And these things are tricky, right? They're under a lot of pressure. There we go. Okay, so we got the second one out. Now, what I did was I went to my toolbox and I found a socket that fits in here perfect. And I found one that'll fit under it. So as the cap comes out, and by the way, you can check it with this one over here to make sure that it'll come over the top. I'm actually gonna prop this up a little more. Okay, and yeah, working on these things is a little precarious. So You're gonna want to find a couple of sockets that are old because you're gonna beat the daylights out of this thing. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna knock it through. And we're just about there. Want to make sure we're doing okay. Is that almost there? So if you're doing this out on the trail, you're going to be propping this up on some rocks. And how are we doing here? So both of our caps are moving. What we've got to do is knock this far enough through. Yeah, smack this over a little bit. Far enough through that we can get the one side out. Okay.
Tone, can you address a question while you're working
sure.
on that? Kevin Cavallo, what are your thoughts on tacking in the caps on the U-joints?
Yeah, on the front, yes. So if that cap had been tacked, but you got to be careful, right? Because there's very little grease. You can see there's very little grease inside there. So if you put too much heat in there, you're going to burn up the grease. And by the way, to get that axle out, those tacks have to be absolutely flush with the axle or it won't fit through the knuckle. So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword. If you're going to tack those axles, I would bring a cordless grinder so that you can grind those in the event you've got to get that off on the trail. I think that was it.
And Jeremy Duper asked, what size U-joint do you like using?
I like 1350. I just had this conversation with Jim Reel. And even if you go to the 14 series, the cross, all these journals are the same size on a 1450. So you're really not gaining anything. It's bigger in diameter, which for us Jeep guys, there's not enough room under there, so it just means there's less room. So you really don't want to do that, okay?
We've got Josh Dodsworth online with us.
Yep.
And he said that the ball joint delete systems also address the problem with push out from a broken stub U-joint.
Yes.
Contacting joints and shoving them out. He said he'll get you a JKTJ set and JTJL set soon.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. So I see what's happening now. There's a little zert on here and it's keeping this from dropping far enough. So what we're going to want to do is go the other way and get it out that way first. So you just got to pound these back in. By the way, these caps, they're hardened steel. So, it's not ideal to be hitting these, okay? If these were assembled at a drive shaft shop, they'd be doing it with an arbor press. And that's a much more ideal situation. I'm showing you a trail fix. Right? There we go. Okay, so bottom cap fell off. And you can see, I don't know if they can see, Alex, there's all those little needle bearings, right? And by the way, when you do this, you can see some grease in here. That is not as much grease as I'd like to see in there. So this is, obviously this is a used drive shaft, right? So it's older. Okay, so now I got the one side off. Now what I got to do is flip it over and pound this back, right? So I don't want to hit on the end of the U-joint. So I'm going to use a socket. Actually, I'm going to go that way. Let's get this stuff off here so it doesn't bounce off. Got to get that restarted. This is always a little tough. Stay there. All right. So we just got to pound this back, and then we'll be able to get the U-joint out. Oh, it's popping out already.
Tony?
Yep.
Jim Coldred asked if needle-bearing U-joints or non-needle-bearing U-joints are better for off-road.
So I really like the needle-bearing U-joints the best, but I know like if you upgrade to the Yukon super joints or like a CTM, those have different like bronze bushing or other materials in there. And the reason they're doing that is they're trying to make that cross, the journals on that bigger. And that's how they're getting more strength out of it. So it just requires more maintenance. You know, the U-joint like this, you know, will last a long, long, long time. So that's, yeah, why they do it that way. Let's see if we can get this restarted. Hopefully. As you can see, this is not a ideal situation. Feels like it might be going. There we go.
Crystal Fulton asked, what's the difference in a 1310 versus a 1350?
Quite a bit. These are 1310s. These are much smaller. As soon as I get it out, I'll show you the size difference. Okay. So now we're back to there. So now we're able to slip the U-joint out of there, okay? So the one cap is just moved out a little bit and it allows us to do that. Now, if you're doing this on the trail, you want to be really careful that those little needle bearings don't fall out, okay? I see it all the time. You know, something happens, they fall out. And by the way, this particular one has little seals and one of the seals got damaged in this process. So that's pretty common too. Again, if you have a brand new one in the box, it's going to come with new caps, new seals, and you won't have to worry about the one that just got jacked. Okay, so now that this is out, where did that, is that this one here? The other 1350. So you can see the size difference between a 1310 and a 1350. So it's pretty substantial, and if I can get one of these off. These, the caps usually snap on, but this is, well, there you go. There's the size of the journal difference. You know, it's quite substantial. So that's a lot of strength difference. And this one broke, right? So you can see that's just how it goes. Okay, so to put it all back, right, you're gonna just reverse the process. You got your new joint, you slip it in, you're gonna pound this back down, you know, get everything lined up. Make sure there's no dirt and burrs and stuff in here, and then put this back together. So typically what I do is I'll just get this cap, and again, I want to put the U-joint in there so the needle bearings don't fall out. And when you're doing this, you want to be careful because these caps are easy to crack. So you definitely don't want to do that.
Tony, Michael Selby is asking, are non-greasable stronger than greasable?
Non-greasable are typically stronger because there's no holes in it. So actually this one that I just had in my hand, what happens is there's a, you know, probably, it's not quite 1/8 inch, it's probably like 3/32 hole that goes all the way through it. So that means it's hollow, right? So there's material removed and the solid ones are tougher, yeah. So that's different. Non-greasable versus greasable is different than needle bearing versus non-needle bearing, right? I just want to make sure everybody understands that. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to slip this part of the way up and make sure that I've got contact inside here. Pound that down. I got to pound this back down enough to get the clip back in, right? So let's get the clip back in here. And on the clip, You just have to get it started. And then keep your finger on it, because if this thing pops out, you're on the trail, that thing's gonna be gone. Okay. There you go, so it snapped in. That's perfect, and it lodges out. And then I'm gonna pop this one down, right? Because I gotta get the clip in on this side. So, not quite enough. Okay, and I know that clip did the old take off on us. And by the way, these clips are not perfectly flat. I don't know if you can see that, Alex. It's a little bit curved. So you want to make sure when you get this put in that it doesn't have the high side down where it won't let the thing clip in. So you want to get the direction right, and then clip the little guy in there.
Tony, Dixie Rose asked, she just uses a press. Am I wrong for this?
No. Press is ideal. If you're in your garage, this is trail fix day, right? So that's what we're showing people. Is a lot of people have never seen somebody change a U-joint, right? So this, by the way, would be the same thing that would be required on a front axle. You're basically hammered it out. The difference on a front axle is the clips are on the inside instead of on the outside. Okay, so now this is put back together. We made sure that the clips sprung and they're well into the groove. I want to give you guys one more tip on your drive shaft. When you look at it, when the drive shafts are made, they paint them, right? So everything, it might be dirty or whatever, but it's painted. If those caps, when they run out of grease, what they do is they start to spin. So if those caps have any missing paint, your drive shaft, your U-joint's about to blow. And wherever you are, you need to stop and fix it right then. Do not go, well, I'll get it next, when I come back from my trip or whatever. That sucker's gonna blow. Okay, it is dry, 100% dry. And when you've got, low ratio gears and torque, man, you are just asking way too much of that thing. So very, very important. And you'll see it, trust me. It'll be very obvious.
Adam Trischler asked, what are your thoughts on double C-clip U-joints?
Everything that, so first off, I don't run those. They're single is fine. And they've never failed me in that regard. So I don't know that it's necessary. And when you add extra stuff to all of this, what you're doing is you're taking away material, or it's getting bigger. Okay. Well, I don't want this stuff any bigger than it already is. We're smashing it into, basically a square peg in a round hole already. So trying to minimize that. Okay. So now let's talk about the other end of this drive shaft, or this would have been the axle end, right? So when this broke, it might have trashed the yoke that was on the axle. Okay, so here's a typical broken yoke. And by the way, this is why people go with a billet yoke. So this is a cast steel yoke. Normally they're fine, but again, as you increase horsepower, you increase torque by putting lower gears in, you're just really pushing it. Once something breaks, now this got hit, I could see where this hit a rock or something, and that's what made it come apart. But it happens. You've been on the trail. I don't know if you've looked underneath your Jeep, but everything's got a rock bash mark on it. So don't be surprised, okay? So here's a nice upgrade from Yukon. And this gives you a lot more meat around the edges. And your U-joint, you can put your new U-joint, pop it right in there. And like I talked about before, there's two different styles of yoke, and you need to know which kind you have and carry spares. So this is what's called a U-bolt style yoke, and the other is a strap style, okay? So the strap is just what it sounds like. It's a little metal strap, and you put in two little bolts go in and hold it, okay? This is the U-bolt style, so it's got about the same size bolts. It's just the whole thing is captured, and that drops in there, and then you put the nuts on. What's important about these, and I talked about it in my last show, is if you over tighten, you can smash the caps, or if you don't destroy the cap, you can make it not round anymore, and then the bearings don't run right. And like this guy, he didn't get very far. This is pretty much a brand new U-joint, and it just melted because there was a high spot pushing on those needle bearings you saw, and yeah, just melted. Okay.
Hey,
so
Tone, Crystal Fulton asked a great question.
Sure.
I have front Tom Woods shaft. I was told the vibration is coming from the splines getting worn out. They said rebalancing would not do any good.
Correct.
They said it's still got 2/3 of its life left. Would you recommend getting a new driveline and keeping that one as a spare, or should I be okay? And what would my driveline splines slip on the splines with that wear?
So I'm always a fan of replacing it and keeping that one as your spare. So if this was my drive shaft, right, and I had a bad U-joint, which, okay, if it was mine, and I was gonna say I would never let that happen because I am on top of this stuff. You need to be maintaining this stuff. Don't be that guy. There's grease ports all over this thing that, you know, could easily have been avoided. But I am all about a spare. So if this was me, I would not have fixed this on the trail. I would have just taken my spare out, put it in, and been done. Okay, the splines, so you could like see how easy that came apart? That's bad. That's like, this is worn out, right? That is really important. And if you'll notice I showed you a drive shaft on Tuesday that was almost twice this size in the spline section. So, you know, this is a very standard size, especially if you're running 1310 U-joints. And by the way, guys and gals, you know, to go from a 1310 to a 1350 isn't that much more money. You know, you're talking about another $100 or $200 when you're getting something like this. It's cheap in the big scheme of things. So just make sure that whoever is advising you is really giving you the straight scoop about what you don't, you know, if you walk in and go, I just want to replace this, they're going to hand you another one, right? But if you're talking about what can I do to make it better, that's a different conversation, okay? That's what I'm all about. I don't ever want to have to deal with this again, all right? So that's what you, and if you're drive shaft short like this, you have no choice but to get one of these CVs. And this should be, if you're driving your Jeep, if it's a daily driver, this needs to be rebuilt once a year. You just drop it off at the drive shaft shop, they'll take care of it, bring it back, and then you know it's done right. And that's a real easy thing to do. As far as the sloppy splines, yeah, you want to be careful. If you keep running that, it's going to get worse and it's going to wear out bearings on either end. The other thing is, just like when I pulled this apart, I did not get this put back together correctly. So before you slide this off, you need to, if you look under on mine, there's a mark. Sometimes the drive shaft shop puts an arrow, but this has to go back on the splines in the same spot every time, or you will be way out of balance. If you think it's bad now, try that and it'll really be wacky. So, but good question.
She has another question.
Okay.
Do I have to get a different drive line to use the 1350, or can I just go get the 1350 and put on my current drive shaft?
No, it's totally different at the axle side and the transfer case side. So if that's not an option for you, because you know now it's just added more cost, then get the non-serviceable 1310s. So that there's no hole down the middle, and just get as much beef in there as you can and stay after the maintenance on these things. They'll break because they run out of grease. Okay.
Dan Condos, thank you for all the great information, Tony. What size U-joints does a front JL Dana 44 use on the ends?
So it's a 14 or a 15 series. The JL actually, when they came out with the JL, they added 10 degrees of additional steering, which was really cool because with the longer wheelbase, that's super nice. And you know, whether it's just turning into a parking spot at the mall or out on the trail, getting around a tree or a rock, having that extra steering is nice. I don't know off the top of my head what the number is, and this one doesn't have it on the box. But I'll look it up and I'll post it on this after we get off for the exact size.
Nick Mandelos, can you share with everyone about checking the installed U-joint for binding after installing it?
Yes.
And how to tap it further out to unbind it?
Yes.
Some may not know about that.
Okay, so I'm actually glad we're getting so many questions that I got thrown off, but that's something you want to check. So when I pounded this down to get the clip in, sometimes what happens is now the whole thing is forced to one side and the U-joint won't move, okay? So then what you gotta do is you gotta flip it back over and then whack it from this side, not a lot. You're talking like do one and then check the U-joint. You're just looking for this to get freed back up. Because if the end of the U-joint is pushed right on the cap, it's gonna get a hot spot and you're gonna have trouble again. The grease will burn up and you're gonna be in trouble. So yeah, you gotta make sure that this moves really nice and smooth. If you notice, see how this isn't moving very good? Like this is real clunky, and that needs service for sure. So this is just one of my sample drive shafts in here, so.
Tommy Dykstra asked, do the Curry's 6070s come with billet yokes?
Typically they do, yes. Yeah, they almost always have the, what's the brand on that? I'm drawing a blank, but it's a well-known drag manufacturer, drag car manufacturer brand. So yeah, it's a nice one. They're black, so. Yep.
Adam Trischler, Spicer versus Neepco style slip joint, which is better?
So JE Reel is using all that Neepco stuff, which I'm using on everything. It's worked great. Prior to GenRight working with them, I was always all about the Spicer stuff. So what you don't want to do is veer off one of those two brands. Then you're getting China Central and it's junk. So, yeah. And look, a lot of this stuff you guys buy for your Jeep, these aftermarket companies will say, oh, well, it's a lifetime warranty. Well, unless they're prepared to fly out there and get you with a helicopter, I don't care how good the warranty is. The bottom line is you're stuck in the middle of nowhere in a bad spot and you're holding up everybody behind you. It's usually not a good situation. So, yep. Okay, can I move on to the next thing?
Yeah.
Okay, next I want to talk about one of the questions we had was, how do you change a hub? Like what's inside this thing? So let's, I've already removed a couple of the bolts. Let me turn this just a little bit. Oh, this reminds me, I want you guys carrying a spare pitman arm. It's cheap. Just go get one and make sure you get one for your vehicle and carry one of these. This is another one of those parts that when it breaks, you're in big trouble. So make sure you carry one of those. Let's pop these out. So I popped some of the bolts out already. These are little tiny Allen head bolts. And whether it's a Warn or Yukon, this is pretty much the same. Taking these bolts out. I'm gonna slide this just a little bit closer to me. Here we go. Can you see okay, Alex? So if you've never been inside one of these, we're about to reveal the mystery. Okay, so what you want to do is don't lose the bolts, okay? These little bolts are not easy to find in a hardware store, so make sure you hang on to those things, okay? Next, there's a spring right here. Don't let that fall in the dirt, okay? And there's also a little seal behind here that sometimes gets hung up inside here, so you want to make sure you got track of that seal. This little piece that I'm moving right here is what they call the fuse. Okay, so when something goes south, what's going to break is that, okay? Because this is what pushes back and engages your axle, okay? So I've got an axle stuck in here, and then when you unlock the hub, that's what happens. It just pops forward, and then the hub's unlocked, okay? Now, it's held in with one little screw. So whether you have a whole new hub or you have a spare fuse, you can swap that out. Now there's a spiral clip holding this thing on. I'm going to tip this up for a second. So I'm gonna drop this axle out for a second so I don't have to show you that. So I can see where this seal, or where this starts. Okay, and then using something, whether it's a small screwdriver or built, ready-built pry tool, you got to get in here and get this little snap ring, spiral ring started. And sometimes this will take a couple tools, right? So you can kind of keep it up and then, but this has to come up and out. Here we go. So it's starting to come out. So this little guy, can you still see okay? Comes out, and that's what it looks like when it's all done. But it opens up like this. So they call that a spiral clip, okay? And then from there, you've got to get inside. There'll be a small C-clip way down on the axle that you got to take out. And then this little guy will come out of there, okay? So you can replace that whole thing, drop a new chunk in. Now, I can tell you this on the Yukon, when you take this out, you better be ready. Because when you take that out, this is gonna go boom. Because the Yukon fails locked. Okay, so that's a big difference. This one will fail unlocked, a Warn hub would fail unlocked, and a Yukon would fail locked. So they put it under spring tension. And then to put it back together, it's just a reverse, put the clip back in, you just wind this little, you unwind it like that, you stick it in there, and then you just kind of go round and round to get it back inside. Like so. And down, you got to make sure it clips down in there, and then put your spring on and your cap, and then you just line up the bolts, and you're good to go. Put it back together. All right, so that's 101 on hubs, and it's really not that tough. If you have hubs like this, you should carry either a whole spare hub or the fuse. I wrap mine in a plastic bag, and it's padded so that when it bangs around in the Jeep, it's not getting beat up, and because you want to make sure that this whole thing operates real smooth, okay? And there are some seals and other things in there. You definitely don't want dirt in that. Okay.
Crystal Fulton is asking, sector shaft is weak on stock 2012 JK. Is there a trail trick to get off the trail if this happens?
So that's why I 100% recommend Ram Assist. Okay, so the Ram Assist, if you break your sector shaft, which by the way, if you do Ram Assist, it's already helping to protect the sector shaft, okay? So, but if you still manage to damage it because you're over traveling, or there's many reasons why the sector shaft or something inside the steering box would break. The Ram Assist, it's not pretty, but it will get you off the trail and back home, or at least to the trailer, so Ram Assist is definitely what you want.
Terry Witt asked, do you make a stronger pitman arm for the 2018 JLU?
No, the factory one is just fine. This is all I run on the Terremoto, and I drill mine out. I drill this taper out so I can run a big 3/4 inch bolt. And raced KOH, I've had the same one on for, 7, 8 years and just beating the daylights out of it, so just fine.
David Driver, would you rather have a ball peen hammer or a claw hammer in your trail toolkit?
Good question. And you can see, even when I was using this claw hammer, that was like the bare minimum to perform that task. Really, in my toolbox, I'd have a little 2.5-pound sledge to better do that kind of stuff. But I have a little ball peen hammer, and I have a claw as well as a 2.5-pound sledge in my tools. So, but if I had to pick one, I'd probably pick the ball peen. Yeah. What else you got? Lots of good questions. I
yeah,
like that.
some really good questions. 2012 JK Rubicon 3.5-inch lift. Do I need a drag link flip?
Drag link flip. With a 2.5-inch lift? I mean,
3.5-inch lift.
I'm all about higher steering, okay? To me, that is get it out of the way. But it's not that simple, because when you move the drag link, you have to move the track bar at the same time, or you're gonna get nasty bump steer. Okay, so when you start dealing with the steering, there's a whole bunch of things that have to match, and it's a little bit of black magic, because you need to be able to take the springs out and cycle the suspension to make sure that everything clears. And not just straight up and down, you gotta be able to turn it, articulate it, do all that stuff. We've got special lifts here that we've converted to make that happen. But if you don't do that, then you're testing it out on the trail, and the likelihood of having a problem is pretty high. So
we have about 10 minutes left, and we have a couple of questions that are unrelated to direct topic.
I guess we're not going to get to the shocks today. We'll save that. Okay.
Raymond Larson, 2018 JLUR 37-inch on Raceline beadlocks, 2.5-inch lift. What is the ideal steering setup for this rig? I'm looking for something strong and highway drivable.
So we offer two different steering kits for that Jeep from Curry. One is an import and one is a US made. They're both chromoly. They're really heavy duty. They have bigger tie rod ends. It is not the end all be all, but it is way better than what you got. And I would highly recommend that. And it's at two different price points. You can see it on our website. You can either shop by steering or shop by vehicle, and you'll see both of those steering setups. But they're from Curry. Or that might now be Rock Jock, but they're on our website.
Right. Devin Olson, 2002 TJ. Front axle is a Ford high pinion Dana 44.
Nice.
Rear is a Ford 8.8.
Okay.
35-inch tires, looking to go to 37s. I want to stretch the wheelbase when going long arms. My question is, what are the benefits and drawbacks to aluminum links, and what size diameter links would work best for me?
Those are great questions. Okay, so when you're stretching a vehicle, it always makes a bigger difference. You'll feel, the Jeep will feel better if you do the rear. The rear is really where you want to stretch. That makes the biggest difference. Next, your question about going to 37s, that's fine. You're definitely on the edge of those axles. You may have to upgrade the shafts and just drive mindfully, right? Depending on how much throttle you're using. Next, the links. You want a minimum of 2-inch or 2.25 or 2.5. I run a 2.25-inch aluminum link. If I'm running steel, I run a 2-inch link. The aluminum links tend to flex under, like if you smack them, they'll flex a little bit, at where the steel link would just bend. Okay, so neither is like a giant deal. A lot of the times we can bring the steel links back and put them in the 20-ton press and straighten them out and just keep reusing them. It's fine. But a lot of people don't like that. So yeah. And oh, by the way, the steel links you have to make up yourself, right? So you got to weld in the bungs, then you got to chase the threads. A lot of people just go, hey, forget it. I'd rather just order an aluminum link and be done. You just got to make sure you know the length of your links before you order them, or you're just wasting money. So, yep. But you'll find aluminum links on everything we have around here for sure. What else you got?
Martin Medina, 2012 JK Rubicon, mainly used for overlanding, but getting more into rock crawling. I'm currently on a 3.5-inch metal cloak lift with metal cloak steering, 35-inch tires. Front axle has C-gussets, Dynatrac ball joints. Rear axle has chromoly axle shafts. I want to go to 37s. Should I continue to upgrade front axle shafts and rear gear, or replace axles entirely? Do not plan on going higher than 37s.
So I've heard that. I don't plan on going bigger than 37s more times than I can tell you. Well, once you move up to 37s and you see how much more capable your vehicle is, the next thing going through your mind is, man, if I was on 40s, it'd be even better. And it is. That's why I always talk about 42s too. They're even better. So That's great. You know, I appreciate that because I also know that going beyond 37s costs a lot more money. So, so let's stay with your question. You can, you know, you've already spent a lot of money on good parts, so you know you're well into this thing. You can continue to upgrade those if you can afford it to go to, you know, like some Curry 60s or something. Man, it would be money well spent. You never think about those again. And by the way, the Curry 60 has the same or more ground clearance than a 44. So you're not losing anything. And certainly with 37s, depending on the trails you're running, you can use all the clearance you can get. So, yep, good question. What else you got?
Let me see if there was something at the
She's
bottom.
looking back for more stuff.
Yeah. Let's see.
I know we covered a lot of stuff today. I know this is a lot for everybody to take in.
Logan Delarino, 2016 Jeep JKU. Would your JKU rear triangulated cross member work with the 14-bolt axle truss? Or is the cross member only designed for the Elite system?
Well, the cross member was designed for the Elite system, which means you move the gas tank to the rear, right? It's all part of getting the thing to be a flat belly, as well as double triangulated, okay? Now, that cross member, that rear cross member will work with any axle, any bridge, you know, like that's, once you start getting away from our complete kit, then it's 100% up to you to make sure that you're bump stopping it out, that you're clearancing everything, that you've just stepped away from everything we set up and designed it around. And that's fine. Some of that is part of the fun, but you just got to remember that it's 100% up to you. That cross member, we've got one sitting over here. It's beefy. I mean, that thing, it's what's in Terremoto. It's proven at KOH. The geometry's perfect. It actually has 1 degree that steers you up onto the obstacle. Yeah, Alex is carrying it over. So, oh yeah. So this is it. I know you've probably seen it. You know, but all the mounts are built into it. I mean, it's a beautiful cross member. The other mounts go up on the side of the frame. You know, this is 1/4 inch thick, beefy, plated, you know, that goes on the inside of the frame. This is a really nice piece. And, but again, the idea was around getting people to the flat belly. So, but it'll work for sure. Yeah.
Gabe DeSantis, is your aluminum true 6061 T6?
Well, it depends on the part we're talking about, right?
Okay.
So
He doesn't mention it specifically.
yeah, basically there's different grades of aluminum for different sections of the vehicle, right? Depending on what you're doing with it. So 7075 can't be welded and it can't be bent, right? It'll crack. It's super, super tough. It's like steel. So the belly skid on my Jeep is made of 7075. Those control arms that we're talking about, like the Summit aluminum control, 7075. So there's certain things that are really good. 6061 we would use for something like our corner guards on a TJ or a YJ or LJ. Even though we bend those, we're putting a big giant radius in them. So we're able to use 6061. But if, for instance, if I wanted to build an aluminum seat, I would use a 3000 series because it's really malleable and I can form it and do that kind of stuff. So it just depends on where you're using the material, you know, if we're doing it in sheet or tubing or whatever, but we buy many different grades of aluminum depending on the product.
Corey Lone Wolf Picard, I stretched the front to get me to 118 inches. Will that be bad compared to stretching the rear, 2013 JKU?
No, that's fine. Typically when I do that, like on the Terremoto, I move the back, I think it was like 3/4 of an inch to get it in the middle of the fender well, and then the rest was on the front, but I'm at 118 also. Yep. You know, that once you start getting into that range, you know, it's different when you're taking a 93 inch, you know, TJ or YJ, right? And you don't want to just push the front end out. You really want to get that rear end back. And basically what you're after is you're trying to get the wheels to the end so that as you come up to something, it's the wheels that hit first and not, the bumper or the body. So.
John Hearn, 2009 JK, can I run coilovers with standard width axle?
If you try and do that, you're going to end up with a really offset wheel, okay? And I don't like offset wheels because on the steering, they're looking for things in the road. They're putting a lot of stress on the bearings, on the ball joints. You're just leveraging everything out and creating a ton of scrub radius, so which breaks traction. So it's not ideal. Is it possible? Absolutely. You would be limited, even if you went with the farthest out wheel and a 2.5 shock, you'd be limited to a 37-inch tire. So.
Good.
Yeah. We got most of the questions.
Looks like we got one. Jason Adams came in the
perfect.
in the 11th
And I know
hour.
I was going to answer his questions. Okay.
Is 114 too long for a slow slug, JK?
No, that's so. We figured out a while ago that 118 was really nice. You got to get the belly up. There's the ratio there for breakover. With the more narrow-bodied LJ, we figured out 115 was a really good length for those. So, that 114 to 118, I think is, on a 40 or bigger tire is like perfect. So, yep. Yeah, really good combination.
Corey Lone Wolf Picard again. Do you or will you offer a rear frame chop bumper? I have a frame chop rear bumper now, but I would like to go to aluminum, but due to cutting the frame, I can't put a normal bumper on now.
Oh, well, you're in for a surprise because I make a fix for that. I make a whole new frame section for you to put that back on so you can run one of our aluminum bumpers. So it's on our website under JK, rear bumpers. So it's there. Been there for 2 or 3 years already. Yep.
Jim Farmer added, don't forget to carry a couple pieces of angle iron to weld in place if you twist up or collapse the drive line. It got us out a couple of times.
Yeah, so when I have my drive shafts made, I always specify extra thick wall. I want to make sure that, if something hits it, it doesn't just peel it open. Carrying angle iron, extra material, clamps, all kinds of stuff. Think ahead about what potentially could go wrong and what you could do to MacGyver yourself out of a bad situation, or one of your buddies, right? Obviously you want to make sure that you're tight and set, right? Make sure everything's lubricated and well maintained so that you're not that guy, and hopefully whatever you brought is for the other guy. But if you have things that are specific, a pitman arm you're not putting this on a TJ, right? This is way specific. So you just want to make sure that whatever you need for your vehicle, you've got it and you're set. So a rear, I can tell you, if you have zero drive in your vehicle, it's going to be really hard to get it off the trail. I've had to do that before, where we burned up a drive line and I just had to winch 50 feet at a time. That's a long day. Okay, so you want to make sure that you at least have two-wheel drive to get yourself out of there, or help get yourself out of there if somebody's trying to tow you. But moving a dead vehicle is really, really tough. So definitely plan ahead. Okay, and again, just like we talked about with the drive shaft, take that out, right, or hub or whatever. Save it as a spare. It still works. It fits. Pack it up, and you got that set, and it'll work. And put the new stuff in. We're coming around to wheeling season, so yeah, get yourself set up.
Okay, cool. Looks like you're caught up.
All right. So thank you everybody for watching us. Don't forget Tuesday, I've got a gentleman from Torco Synthetics that'll be here. We're going to answer all your questions on why you need synthetic, oil, everything. We're going to talk about it for the engine, transmission, transfer case, axles, grease, everything. And that is what we use, and there's a lot of reasons behind it. and we will uncover all the reasons why. So we'll see you then.